Welcome one, welcome all to another episode of Echo from the Buttes. I'm your host, Tom Harden. With me is Andrew Hazlett. And it's unfortunate, but the Sun Devil baseball season has come to an end. The Sun Devils did fall to Ole Miss on Sunday, again in extra innings fashion to the Ole Miss Rebels, knocking the Devils out of the NCAA tournament after failing to reach the Super Regionals for the first time since 2011. But Andrew, I want to get your take on the overall scope of this season. 39 wins and advancing to the regional final, albeit with needing to force the Monday game to win that region. Is this an improvement? Is this a big enough improvement for you? I should ask.
That's a good question, and I don't think there's a right answer. I think it's yes and no. I think the team, I coming into this year, I thought this team's ceiling was a super regional appearance, which they were just off that. Which I if you get a couple things better happen in the regional, you make that super regional. But regardless, yeah, it's a step in the right direction. That's what it is at the end of the day. It's a small step. You'd like them to be bigger, but as long as you're not going backwards right now, you're fine. And I think that's why Willie Bloomquist will be here next season at ASU. You might say he's underperforming, but he's taking steps in the right direction, albeit slow. And that's what's important. You're still making the playoffs every year, and you're improving. Last year, made the playoffs for the first time, won a game in the playoffs. This year, it's 2 wins. All right, next year, it should be the next step up is the super regional appearance. So that should be. I don't want to say Omaha is unrealistic for the Sun Devils. I think that's very realistic. But the goal that the rate of growth would say super regionals should be the goal next season. So
I would agree with you, and I think my baseline expectation was to get to this point, to be playing for the regional final. Getting to a super regional obviously would have been much preferred, but getting one game further into the national tournament fulfills what I really wanted to see out of this team. And let's not forget that the improvement is not just in the national tournament, but in the Big 12 tournament. Don't forget that in 2025, the Sun Devils finished in fifth in the Big 12, having to missing out on that first round bye and getting bounced in the first game by BYU. This season, Sun Devils moved up to third place, got a win in the quarterfinal in their first game of the tournament over Cincinnati before getting knocked out by West Virginia. So the improvement isn't just in the scope of the national tournament; it's in the scope of the conference tournament. And yes, it's small steps, and I know there's going to be a lot of frustrated voices in the fan base that are going to say, well, why aren't we winning the conference tournament? Why aren't we getting to a super regional? This is what Arizona State baseball is known for historically. And this program is not far removed from a very tumultuous 2010s decade that saw the program miss the national tournament for the first time in, I think it was about 50 years, probably the first time ever, at least in the modern era of the tournament. And this program is rebuilding back to the level of where Pat Murphy had this team in the 90s and the 2000s. It's seen its up years, it's seen its down years, and the fact that there's incremental improvement under Willie Bloomquist, that speaks well to me. Speaks well to him going into the 2027 season, as he's set to start the first year of the contract extension that was announced earlier on this season.
Yeah, I think there were definitely rumors saying Bloomquist could be fired after this season, depending on if ASU were to miss the tournament. ASU obviously made the tournament, and I think if there ever was a possibility of Bloomquist getting fired, because Graham Rossini publicly said that's not going to happen regardless of what happens. If there ever even was the possibility, Bloomquist, the team performed well enough for him to save his job, at least for this season. Obviously, expectations are going to be higher, considering that the last season, now in 2026 is when I refer to last season. Last season was your best season. So now 2027, got to improve on the weaknesses. Bullpen in particular, starting pitching, and just pitching as a whole. Pitching has improved over Bloomquist's tenure, but now it's about working on getting that number of portal returns higher, especially on the pitching staff side.
I'm glad you bring up the bullpen because while the pitching depth was a little bit questionable at times, a number of people that I've actually heard from over the last week seem to have forgotten that Wyatt Halverson was lost early on in the season to Tommy John surgery. That's a big piece of your bullpen that you did not have for the bulk of the season, and needless to say, when it mattered, this bullpen picked up the slack. You saw the relief effort from Eli Buxton in Sunday night's game against Ole Miss. You saw Jaden Alba go out and throw his stellar relief outing on Friday. You see guys like Colby Guy stepping up and making spot starts with the season on the line. The depth was there. It's the consistency of that depth being able to perform, and I think that is simply. I don't think it's really a fault of anybody. I think it's simply situational and just purely the fact that this team losing its big arm out of the bullpen was forced to shuffle and adjust on the fly, and sometimes that works out in your favor, sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah, I think that we saw that a lot with the season, is just mismanagement of certain pieces. Alex Overbay started off in the season in the bullpen great, moved him as a starter, and he struggled. Moved him back to the bullpen, he picked it up. Taylor Penn started off pretty strong in the bullpen, moved him to starter, he struggled, moved back to the bullpen, picked it up again. You look at Colin Linder, did okay to start the year, had a bad start against Tennessee, moved him to the bullpen. He got worse a little bit throughout the season, but then we saw his start on Sunday against Ole Miss. He struggled a little bit, so it's interesting to see the consistency. Colby Guy, who's a guy I thought was going to be a reliever for this team, but historically was a starter. And you look at when he was starting for this team, he performed really well, and it makes you wonder. Maybe he should have been a starter, but I don't know. It's a lot of right now looking back and say, oh, what if this, and yeah, it could have been better. Yes, I think it could have been, but how much better? Not significantly enough. I think this team's getting past supers, so. That's my opinion. I think it might have helped a little, but it also could have hurt this team a little. So I don't know. Just consistency's got to be better. It's part of playing in Phoenix Municipal Stadium, part of college pitching as a whole. It's going to be inconsistent, especially with Muni being a smaller park. Gonna yield home runs if you're not careful. So. Just gotta get more guys. Gotta get more guys. Is all I can say about that.
I think back to a comment that you had towards the beginning of the season. I'm going to paraphrase here a little bit, but I believe you were saying something to the tune of Coach Bloomquist indicating that clearly defined roles. I mean, uh, outside of Cole Carlone being the Friday starter, clearly defined roles, especially for the pitching staff, weren't really going to be set at the start of the year. It was going to be continually evaluated as the season went on. We saw that with the emergence of Cole Plecker taking over and anchoring down the Sunday role after getting his first couple starts in midseason games. I think you can kind of point to that, to the consistency and guys not really knowing what their role exactly is going to be week to week. For me at least, I want to know. I want to be able to look at a calendar and know, okay, Friday, Carlone's going. Saturday, Overbay's going. Sunday, Plecker's going. Just be able to reel that off week by week and know consistently that's what the plan of action is going to be.
Yeah, absolutely. I looking back to the start of the year, it did seem Klecker was going to take a weekend start, but a spot at some point, but we didn't know which. I thought Easton Barrett was going to be really good this season, and he obviously didn't last as a starter. It's like even in the bullpen, the back end pieces were supposed to be Eli Buxton and Derek Schaefer. Schaefer obviously lasted, but Buxton, the wheels largely fell off the track for him this season to an extent, and struggled. You did have a good end of season, but it's like you can only predict so much with things early in the season. Like, things evolve, things don't. The emergence of Sean Fitzpatrick on this team after a junior season that was night and day difference to the senior season. It was almost like watching a completely different pitcher some nights, from last year to from 25 to 26. So yeah, moving forward, I would like to see guys set in starting rotation. It's hard to predict, as I've said, but I'll wager a prediction at this point. I'll throw out Finn Edwards, and I'll throw out. Give me a second here. I'll throw out a Colin Linder. Is guys, if they were to return, could be in position to start. I think you're going to see at least one, if not two, potential starters, maybe even three, come in from the portal. I don't be surprised if that happens.
Yeah, the portal is going to be a very beneficial add for the Sun Devils, and that's just the nature of college sports these days. But I'm glad that you bring up Sean Fitzpatrick as well. He was actually who I was going to bring up as one of my wins for the season out of the bullpen. You mentioned his 2025 season, largely, shall we say, disastrous. In 25 appearances, 14 innings, ERA of over 11.5, but really buckled down in his training, and it's something that he spoke about a number of times in post-game media availability, and came out with 4-1 record, 3.12 ERA in 31 games, 26 innings, and really emerged as a left-handed specialist, something that everybody who follows Major League Baseball now knows about the 3-batter minimum rule, so you don't really see one-batter specialists, but Fitzpatrick was absolutely dominant against left-handed hitters, but the real detriment, as we saw in the end of the game against Ole Miss, was his pretty rough splits against right-handed batters. Ultimately, the tying run did come in off a right-handed bat, but that's really one of the trade-offs that you get with a guy who is so dominant to one side of the plate.
Yeah, you saw it with Derek Schaefer too. Is when he struggled, particularly the Oklahoma State game, he struggled against lefties, and all those lefties from Oklahoma State beat him up. I believe it was that Friday night game, and in the ninth inning, where they got like half a dozen runs or something like that off Schaefer, and the Sun Devils lost that one. You see it in righty guys, you see it in lefty guys. That's something that happens in baseball, regardless of arm. The best guys obviously are good against both righties and lefties, but it's good to have those specialists as well, especially with the Sun Devils having only 4 lefty arms this season.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting to see just the makeup over the off season, who Coach Blomqvist pulls in from the portal, who is coming in as a freshman, and who actually arrives to campus as a freshman and does not sign out of the MLB draft, which current Sun Devils do have many players that do appear to be headed to the draft. First and foremost, Cole Carlone. He's consistently been ranked one of the top prospects in the MLB draft. Should be a first or second round pick. I don't see him falling anywhere below the second round.
Yeah, I've seen all the mock drafts I've seen as of late. I've had him in the first round, somewhere around 20. I've seen, I think, as high as like 14 or so, but around 20 in that range is where you might expect to see Carlone. 2022, I think's the spot possibly for him.
And any player that is junior or above is eligible to be drafted. So you're gonna you could see guys like Cole Klecker go off the board. You could see Garrett Michelle, Derek Schaefer. The numbers are endless for the current Sun Devils who could be taken in this year's MLB draft and add to the legacy that is Sun Devil baseball in the major leagues.
Yeah, definitely. And to add on to that, there's a couple of redshirt sophomores on this team, and Brody Briggs and Austin Rolig, who are draft eligible. I don't think we'll see those guys picked in this year's draft, but could always see them next year. I think you look up and down this board, it's there's I could see 8-9 guys being selected. New Contradas is one who's played really well this year on one leg for them a good portion of the season. PJ Mutsuritas, not the best offensively, but defensively his glove is rated to be really high. I think a lot of people are going to like that out as a shortstop position in particular. Dominic Smaldino has played really well as of late and might have played himself into a position where he opts to go and who opts to sign somewhere instead of staying at ASU for another year. Colin Linder's a guy I mentioned who might be picked late. You never know with these things, as after a certain point it kind of gets cloudy on who teams like versus who teams dislike in a draft that's 20 rounds.
It's always a tough call. It's always interesting seeing where these guys that are projected, how far they jump up from their projections, how far they slide from their projections. But we'll learn all that in July during the right around the All-Star break, I believe, is when the draft is. I think July 11th it starts, if memory serves me right. And
that sounds about right.
And we'll see who is getting the call from Arizona State to one of the 30 MLB farm systems. But to circle back to the end of the 2026 season, I want to put out what we feel are our biggest wins collectively of the season. Andrew, what's your biggest takeaway that was a huge plus for the Sun Devils?
Well, there's the obvious. Landon Hairston. His season was one of the best, probably I think there's a tier of three guys that deserve to win Golden Spikes award. He, for me, ranks one. Tate Davis of Louisville is another, and Daniel Jackson of Georgia is my third personally. But I think those three are the best players in college baseball, and he probably deserves a mention there. And then on the pitching side, I'm gonna say Taylor Penn. I think his season was really outstanding. He wasn't thought of as one of the top arms in the bullpen necessarily coming into the season, but pitched well this season to a 3.45 ERA, and that number would be lower if you take away his starts, Tom. So he is, I think, those are my two individual players that had significant wins for me this season.
You took the obvious offensive one. I will take the slightly less obvious offensive win, and that's Neil Contreras. Really formed a dynamic 1-2 punch at the top of the order with Hairston, and along with Dominic Smaldino. This was the first year that Arizona State had 3 20-home run hitters in program history. It really takes a special development, and I know New was really down about not being able to take part in the postseason last year, and took it on himself to get healthy, to get back to game speed, and even though, like you said, he was playing on one leg for a good portion of the season, he really showed out. And those three, once Smaldino really started to get into his stride, the offense was clicking as well as you could ask for. The team hit 326, stood for 6th in the nation, scored 8.6 runs per game, tops in the Big 12, 15th nationally. And you look at an offense that performed like this. And granted, it did start to get very top heavy at the end of the season. You saw some obvious holes at the bottom of the order, but when the top 5 or top 6 in your lineup is hitting as strongly as they are, this team could not be beat. Then on the pitching side, I'm going to come back to Sean Fitzpatrick. He's been a guy I've been very, very excited to watch all season long. Just we mentioned his recovery, his dedication to his off-season training, and I think he was a big bolster in the back end of the bullpen when Halverson went down. And for the pitching staff collectively, again, top 10 in the nation with 11.4 strikeouts per 9 innings. When this team could get everything firing on all cylinders, it was nobody wanted to play Arizona State.
Yeah, absolutely. At times this lineup was top to bottom dominant, and other times I think near the end of the season it kind of felt top heavy, as you said, Tom. Guys slumped. Garrett Michelle had a 0 for double-digit stretch at one point. Brody Briggs at points, who is a defensive catcher, which that does provide value, but on the offensive side of the bat, struggled compared to other guys. And then you kind of try to piece together other positions of need with the DH. After when Michelle was struggling, you tried going with Cohen Neekly. That didn't really work. Sam Myers for a game or two, which didn't really click. Kai McGarry, which at times worked, at times didn't. I'm curious to see if he stays with the team next year. If he does, what his role will be with the team. So you with all those guys, it kind of leads me to wonder who's coming back, who's not coming back. Just how that offensive depth was managed.
Well, you bring up my next point, and with at least with the Who's not coming back, we do already have two names that have entered and found new homes in the portal: Cooper Clauser and Jackson Durst, both transferring. Andrew, you were reporting on their destinations. I'm sure I'm going to get them crossed up, so I'll let you take the lead on that one.
Yeah, both players hopped in the portal on Monday when it opened, and they both committed when we're recording this Wednesday. We'll start with Cooper Clauser, catcher who was third on the depth chart for the majority of the season. When he played well with a 400 batting average, but only in a handful of games. Transferred, he's going to Michigan, go play for Tracy Smith, former Sun Devil head coach. Be interesting to see how he does that. I'm very intrigued by what he can do, because what we saw offensively in that short time was really special, and you sit behind Briggs and Nikolai, who I think Briggs is staying for almost certainly, I'd imagine. I'd be very surprised if Briggs were to leave. And Cohen Nikolai, who is probably going to be an offensive bat if he stays. So I would imagine Clauser's ready. He's ready to go play ball at a significant level. He'd have to transfer. So it makes sense to me. I'm very curious to see what his numbers and game time will be at Michigan. I think that might be a guy where we're sitting here this time next year saying, yeah, he's having a really good season. We might have wished to keep him, or 2 years down the line, because he is still going to be a sophomore. He did have a hand injury, so he is applying for medical red shirt. We'll see if that gets approved or not. But regardless, that's one. And then Jackson Durst was the other freshman who only played in I think 3 games this season as an outfielder, going back to his home state of Nevada to go play there at UNR for the Wolfpack, I believe. Nevada is the Wolfpack, right? If memory serves me
Nevada is the
correctly.
Wolfpack.
But he's going to. Just wanted to make sure I wasn't spewing nonsense here. But again, we'll see what he can do there for his hometown, or for his home state team. Again, 2 freshmen departing. Not the most surprising to see freshmen go after not having playing time. Probably tend to, I'd imagine, see some of these other freshmen who didn't play much depart, both on the offensive side and the pitching staff. Beyond that, who knows? These transfer portals are really impossible to predict. We've seen top guys leave top programs before. Never know with these things. It's hard to predict.
The Wolfpack and the Wolverines, there's a little bit of commonality there if you really search for it and dig around and find that similar trend in the start to their mascots. But yeah, again, to me, not entirely surprising to see freshmen transfer out, especially after getting limited playing time. But there's always the chance that maybe Arizona State will regret not holding on to them, or look back in a year and say, okay, we've been able to pull in some other guys that have played to the expectations or played to the level that these guys have played at as they've gone out. So it could really be a wash. You never know. Like you said, almost impossible to predict. But with guys who are at least staying for the time being, baseball season still doesn't end for some of the Sun Devils, and For those who are not as in tune with the collegiate summer leagues, there are a couple dozen summer leagues across the country. Myself personally, I have followed the Cape Cod Baseball League for, I'm going to date myself here, going on 30 years, having been a fan, worked for a team. It's been all around the league, but I've been able to pull together a little bit of a tracker of Sun Devils who are confirmed to be heading out to the Cape this season. Those are Austin Musso and Garrett Michelle, both going to the Bourne Braves, and Taylor Penn going to the Yarmouth Dennis Red Sox. If you are unfamiliar with the Cape Cod Baseball League and have the ability to get to Cape Cod to see games, absolutely take the chance. If you can't get to Cape Cod, the games do all stream for free on the Cape Cod Baseball League website. You can watch the Sun Devils play in Massachusetts from starting from actually next Saturday, June 13th, all the way through until on or around August 15th.
Yeah, you saw a bunch of guys play in the various summer leagues throughout last season. Landon Harrison, I also want to mention, is going to be playing for USA Baseball this summer too, which we saw Cole Carlone do last season. So you see it in pretty much there's a handful of leagues that the Sun Devils always seem to go to. There's always a bunch of guys in the Cape, always a few in the Northwoods. Always seems to be a few in Alaska up there, so I'm always curious to see who goes up there, because we saw Cole Carlone up there in the past. We saw Wyatt Halverson, Brody Briggs, Kai Gary, Eli Buxton, Colin Linder, all guys who have gone to Alaska and have had bigger roles with the Sun Devils the next year that they've came back from there. So whoever goes to Alaska, I think it is, although it's not the most prestigious league, one that you kind of have to circle to say, okay, he might be taking a step forward this season to an extent.
And fans might know of another Sun Devil who played in Alaska back in the 1980s. This guy named Barry Bonds. He went on to have a pretty okay career in the major leagues. Played a few games, hit a few home runs. But regardless of the destination for a summer league, whether it's on the Cape, in Alaska, if it's in one of the many leagues in the Midwest, playing collegiate summer ball is an excellent opportunity for these kids, especially underclassmen, especially freshmen who are coming out, and really develop their game, play in front of scouts on a near nightly basis. You can walk around any of the 10 fields on the Cape and stumble across at least 2 or 3 scouts a night. It's the best opportunity for them to develop their game, and it's really baseball at its purest form. And as these summer leagues start to ramp up,
Woodbats too.
Yep, Cape League is Woodbats. I believe the Northwoods is Woodbats. The vast majority of these summer leagues are Woodbats, especially ones that have now been absorbed absorbed by Major League Baseball, to get these kids accustomed to hitting with the wood bat instead of the composite bats. But as these summer leagues get ready to ramp up, I did mention the Cape League starting on June 13th. We will be putting together a tracker of where Sun Devils will be playing across the country. You can look for that on echofromthebuttes.com sometime next week. We'll pivot from baseball, and there is some football news that came out today. It's not directly Arizona State related, but it is related to the Tempe area, and that is the return of the Cactus Bowl. Played since 2016 at Chase Field in downtown Phoenix, most recently known as the Rate Bowl. The bowl game will be returning to Mountain America Stadium for the 2026 bowl season. And I don't know about you, but I'm just excited about a postseason bowl game back at Arizona, back at ASU, no matter whether ASU is going to be playing it or not.
It's cool to have a bowl game at your own stadium. That is cool. I might get some flack for this, but I prefer it actually in Chase Field. But
Really?
yeah, I think that if you're gonna play neutral site games, I think it's more interesting to me to see them not in traditional college football stadiums. Uh, I do think regular season college games should be in college stadiums. Not, I wouldn't want to see a territorial cup go to a Chase Field or even a State Farm Stadium. I don't want that. That's not what I'm saying. I think for bowl games especially with these other ones, I kind of prefer them in non-traditional stadiums. That's just my opinion. But regardless, I think it's a win for the Sun Devils as a whole hosting a bowl game. I think that's good. But for me, I'd rather have it in Chase Field. But if I think the Sun Devils will benefit from having it in Mountain America Stadium.
Is that to say that you're not a fan of the Idaho Potato Bowl being played on the blue turf in Boise?
Yeah, I would like to keep the Idaho Potato Bowl, but if there's a better alternate, I'd like to see it. That's why I really like the Pinstripe Bowl and the Wasabi Fenway Bowl or two bowls that I have a little bit of an allegiance to. Is if I could send ASU to whatever bowl, I'd lean toward some of those bowls because I think that's a nice novelty personally.
You know, it is a nice novelty. I mean, me being a Red Sox fan, it's always kind of surreal seeing a football field stretch across Fenway Park. But I don't know. To me, it's also a little bit unnatural. You get the warped seating. You get sometimes you're putting up the temporary stands, and the sight lines may not be the greatest. I don't know. I like the game being back in Mountain America Stadium, and it's it's a win not only for ASU but for the city of Tempe getting to host it once again.
1,000%. Like I said, I think it's for Tempe. You want to have as many events in Tempe as you can, and I think with this being a tie-in between Big 12 and Big 10 teams, you kind of hope to see a team that already hasn't traveled to Tempe in the same season travel to Tempe. So you get two groups, like maybe a West Virginia who it's going to be cold and miserable to an extent in late December in West Virginia, and let's throw out a Michigan State. Those two places are going to be cold in December. Have them come to warm Tempe, experience the outdoor game. That's going to be fun for them, I would imagine, or whoever it is get out of the cold, get them into the warm. I think a lot of people will enjoy it.
It is worth noting as well. You bring up these hypothetical matchups. It's worth noting that the Legacy Bowl tie-ins for the former Pac-12 teams will still be in place for the current season. They were due to expire at the end of the 2025 season, but the stakeholders who determine the bowl games and the bowl matchups decided to extend for one more season. So if Arizona State were to be in a position to get that bid for the Cactus Bowl, it would not happen until 2027 at the earliest.
As you mentioned, Tom, I wish we could get rid of the legacy tie-ins at this point in time, because it's not who these conferences are anymore. Pac-12 isn't Arizona State, Oregon, and UCLA. it's Boise State and all these other teams coming in. So I wish we could be a little bit more. College football could reflect that. We've had, I think, ample enough time to adjust and figure it out. I don't know why it's taken so long to figure out that.
I have a hunch as to why it's taking so long to figure out. It's the money aspect of it. The bowl committees themselves are thinking about how many fans are we going to get for the LA Bowl if Fresno State is the Pac-12 representative, when we could be getting increasingly more if Arizona State is the Pac-12 legacy representative. I think that's the big conversation going on, how these bowls and their committees can maximize the revenue from teams traveling in. As we know, Arizona State fans will travel wherever to see a bowl game. Just look at the Peach Bowl and how many fans travel to Atlanta. Doesn't matter where Arizona State plays, fans will travel. But these committees are thinking about the new breed of the Pac-12. How far will Colorado State fans travel? How far will Fresno State fans travel?
Yeah, I get that, but again, how many years have these teams announced movement? There's been plenty of time to figure something out. Yes, there's gonna be people who get the short end of the stick. Like, one of the bowls I would have liked to seen ASU potentially go to is the Pop-Tarts Bowl, because it's the Pop-Tarts Bowl. On one hand, if you're an ASU fan, you wouldn't want to see that, because you want to see this team go as far in the college football playoff as you can. But if you can't, that's a great option. Now, with the Pac-12 tie-ins, you have only a handful of places. So we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, I'm with you. If it's not a CFP appearance, then I want the most fun bowl game as possible, and that's with the most fun mascot, the giant Pop-Tart. I want to see him. Want to see the Pop-Tart drizzled in maroon and gold, or however, whatever they do for the celebration at the end of the year.
Didn't they have like 6 last year?
But something like that. And I feel like the crew behind the Pop-Tarts Bowl also wants to maybe change things up year by year and not make it so predictable. Want to keep that novelty factor. If they don't have the novelty of playing in a baseball stadium, have the novelty of a different post game celebration with the mascot.
Yeah. I think that just goes across to pretty much every bowl game. Whether it is the Sun Bowl you saw last year of Tony the Tiger, the bowl of the whatever it was, Frosted Flakes, I think
it was Frosted Flakes, yeah.
I don't eat cereal. Sorry, Tony. But point being is you have cool things that you can tie into it with these bowls, and you, after a certain point, you'd like to go to different ones to an extent.
Yeah, well, for the time being, the Sun Devils will still be tied to those Pac-12 Legacy Bowls. We will have to wait and see what the ties will be, if they retain the current ties that the Big 12 has, or if bowl ties get shuffled up altogether. We will not know until that time comes. But one last closing note that I want to bring up. Speaking of the national reach of Sun Devil football and Sun Devil fans, the 2 covers for the new edition of NCAA football were released this week, and on the deluxe edition, speaking again to Sun Devil's reach, Sparky is featured, and Coach Dillingham was quoted as saying in his media availability today, it really speaks to how how football and how Sun Devil athletics in general is activating the Valley and activating the national recognition of the Sun Devils. You look back even 5 years, I don't think you would have seen this level of brand recognition, and that all starts at the top. We've been raving about him for weeks on end now. He did get his well-deserved recognition. The name of the recognition is escaping me right now, but Graham Rossini, everything he's been doing at the top since becoming athletic director is lending its hand to this recognition for all of Sun Devil athletics.
Yeah, absolutely. It's cool to see Sparky on the cover, which 2 years in a row is nice, but maybe next year I'd like to see Kenny Dillingham on the cover, or a player or someone on the cover, which is I'm not super into video games right now, Tom, so you might know the answer to this more than me. Is this game with last year's rosters or this next upcoming season's rosters?
It was with the upcoming season's rosters. So I have 26 that I played through and through, had the current roster, current schedule, and the developers even added in the blackout uniform after it made its debut in late September against TCU.
Yeah, I look at this team, and there isn't any national superstar on the team like Cam Scadaboo or Jordan Tyson a year ago. So yeah, it does make sense to throw Sparky on the cover. But maybe next year there's someone that emerges and who's going to be who is a Sun Devil at this time next year, that we're all saying, oh, this guy's has national attention, like we felt Jordan Tyson would this year. Scadaboo a few years ago. That's something I'd like to see in the future for the Sun Devils, but if you look 5 years, 6 years ago, 7 years ago, 8 years ago, would this have happened? Probably not.
Absolutely
we probably wouldn't
not.
see Sparky on the cover. So it's an improvement, but there's always more improvement.
And we have Sparky on the cover. We have the Tillman statue in the game running out through the pitchfork. The next addition I'd like to see to the NCAA series is working to stomp the bus into the pregame sequence at America Stadium.
Yeah, that's probably the biggest thing of the pregame sequence is that individual sequence as a whole. As in the press box, you're out what feels like a mile high in that stadium. You can hear it when they do stomp the bus. It gets loud. You see the student section all up on their feet. It's the coolest moment in pregame festivities for sure.
It absolutely is, and you know it's a big thing nationally when it has its own Wikipedia article. How many other pregame traditions can you think of off the top of your head that have their own Wikipedia article?
Yeah, I don't know. Wikipedia is a fun place. Spending way too much time in my life on that site.
Who hasn't? Let's be honest. Well, with that, we will wrap up this week's episode of Echo from the Buttes. We will continue to bring you all the transfer portal news for baseball as it becomes available. We'll also bring you updates for hockey rosters. We've known who the incoming commits are, waiting for that finalized roster to really be determined, and any other news and updates throughout the off season. We will be your source on EchoFromTheButtes.com. For Andrew Hazlett and for everybody else at Echo from the Buttes, I'm Tom Hardin, and as always, give 'em Hell Devils.